So here we are.
Hi.
All right. Okay, so hello everyone, and nice to be with you for a short time this evening. We have the time tonight to launch a new book and to open up the arena of Mahamudra and what it is. It's a book. It's quite a nice cover, I think. Two apsaras throwing flowers into the air, so they scatter down to earth. So, and two of the, there are three sections in the book. The first is the 8 short chapters of the treasury of Doha songs. And two of these are already translated in the book Simply Being. But the translations have been revised, so they're a bit different. And then there are 3 other texts, and concluding with the famous Mahamudra prayer. The texts are allusive in many ways. They're not setting things out in a kind of sequential, rational way, explaining or justifying. They just make their points in a simple way. So generally, Mahamudra means our own mind. It's one of the words which refer to the mind, such as Madhyamika, Dzogchen, and so on. Because we can't find our mind as something, it tends to attract many different names. We can't nail it down as being something. So the word Mahamudra means the great seal. Sometimes it's explained as being like a royal document, which is written out carefully, and then at the end it's sealed with wax as a sign that not one letter should be changed. And another word for this is the ordinary mind, or ordinary knowing. How your mind is at this moment, with whatever is moving around inside it, is just this. Nothing has to be changed. When you take up a position regarding yourself and you're unhappy with how you are and you want to change, this is not Mahamudra. So in Tibetan, the word is, Mahamudra is translated as Chagya Chembo. And Chag means a hand, and Ya means vast or big. This Chag is explained often as being the wisdom which penetrates to emptiness. And Gyad means, as vast, indicates that there is nothing outside this. So it's saying, don't do too much. When we are in our usual dualistic condition, we are always concerned with what should we adopt or accept and what should we reject. As if we should subtract some things for ourselves and have less of them, and add some things so that we have more of them. This is the activity of composing ourselves, or creating or constituting ourselves. And because we have this developed capacity to alter how we are, it's difficult to be quite content with how we are. We have access to many, many different ways of manifesting. Which one will be right? Which will be the best expression of our authentic self? Oh, we can act on the body, changing hairstyles, getting tattoos, gaining weight, losing weight. We can try to speak to other people in different ways, more politely, more directly. And we can try to move the contents of our mind around to make the right kind of pattern. How will I know that I've got it right? Oh, it will feel right. It will feel right for a while. And then something else will happen. So because we live interacting with our environment all the time, our internal factors and external factors are in communication. And this leads to the experience of ever-changing experience. It doesn't stop. We never get to a point where we can say, this is who I truly am, and I'm not going to change. The mind is always moving. So if you try to control the energy of the mind, it's like trying to control the wind. And of course, in yoga, there are many ways of trying to control and balance the winds in the body. But that's, of course, very artificial. It's difficult to imagine that you could make something natural by practicing being artificial. And generally, the great Mahamudra yogis, the siddhas, they say, don't keep adjusting yourself. Because when you're adjusting yourself and trying to get yourself right, to be in the proper way, well, the question would be, what is your map? What is your template? What can show you that you're going in the right direction? With our body, we have our life flows out and in through the senses. Many things arise in the course of a day that seem very wonderful or important, and we're drawn towards them. But the attractive object may not be one that it's suitable to go towards and try to accept. So in the traditional examples, in the evening, if you're outside with a candle or a lamp, you see that the moth is drawn towards the flame in which it will be burnt up. Or that the bee can be attracted towards a plant where the nectar is in at the bottom and it gets stuck inside and can't find its way out. Or the deer gets mesmerized by the sound of the hunter playing on the flute, and in that entranced state, it becomes easy for the hunter to kill it. Or the fish is attracted to the taste of the food which is put on the hook of the fisherman. Or the elephant, which on a hot day seeks to cool itself by going into a muddy pool, but then because the sides are slippery, it cannot get out and so dies. In this way, attachment through the senses can lead us into dangerous situations, because the arousal of desire carries a blindness with it. And that's the general structure of consciousness. We have a knower and an object, something to be known, and the process of knowing. But the mind as it is, or Mahamudra, is not a quality of consciousness. It has no lack, and it has nothing to get rid of, and it's not interpreting phenomena. So in the original teachings of Mahamudra were very, very simple indeed. But over time, they get organized and developed into systems. The systems can be useful because they give us a sense of purpose and a sense that there's something for us to do. But the very intentionality of following a system and doing a formulated practice maintains us in this dualistic structure. But just to briefly mention, the most general structure for Mahamudra is this 4 aspects, beginning with one-pointed attention. Distraction is dualistic. That is to say, I get carried away pursuing some thought or dream. I'm sitting in the practice, relaxed and open, and then suddenly I'm off chasing some thought or memory or plan. So there are different levels of this one-pointedness, but the fundamental one begins with the shamatha or shine practice, whereby we focus our attention on the breath or an external object and bring our attention back whenever it gets distracted. And the second factor is unelaboratedness. So, non-elaboration means you don't do anything with whatever arises. So you can maintain the focus that you have in the first one-pointedness, and then when different thoughts and feelings are arising, they are simply as they are, without becoming involved and elaborating any story about them. So this second aspect is like vipassana or hlakton. These terms simply mean seeing clearly or seeing precisely. Something is arising in the mind and it's vanishing from the mind. What will you do with it? A wave arises in the ocean and goes back into the ocean. The wave is always vanishing. Our thoughts, feelings, memories, and so on are always vanishing. So one aspect of our involvement with thought and our desire to make something of them is a kind of fear of death. It's not allowing the simple, natural impermanence of every experience. When we see that this will pass, that everything which arises will pass, then it just passes. And because it's passing, it's not the end, because something else is arising. So the third aspect is called one taste. That whatever is arising, whatever kind of experience is occurring, each moment of experience has the same taste of ungraspability. You can't actually do anything with a thought. You can think about the thought, but the thought that you are thinking about has already vanished and you're simply replacing it with another thought. The second thought cannot actually be stuck on to the first thought. Because they are movements in the flow of time, and because we are full of belief in the seeming reality of these moments in the flow of time, it is as if the thoughts join together to form patterns. So to really sit with your own mind, relax in the out breath, and just be there as the arena or the presence within which whatever is coming is coming. Then we see what is arising is something impactful, something which has its own force field, which moves us in different ways, and yet we can't catch it. Since you can't catch the immediate moment of the content of your mind, because it's vanishing, there is nothing to do. But maybe you think, oh, some of the thoughts and feelings which arise in my mind are not very pleasant. I don't want to have that kind of thought in my mind. That is a very self-referential positioning. I want to live life on my terms. I want to have the house I want, the clothes I want, the food I want, and I also want to have the mind I want. But even when you cook a delicious meal, the end product is shit. Shit and dishes that need to be washed. Nothing perfect stays. That is to say, perfection doesn't lie in the patterning of experience, but in the non-duality of experience and its own ground. And the fourth aspect is called non-meditation. Generally, in the tradition, we meditate in order to try to do something with our mind, to purify it or develop more compassion or wisdom. But because everything has the same taste, how can you say one thing will be better than another? So a key point here is value is not intrinsic or fixable. Value arises relationally in a particular interaction or context. So with non-duality, we are concerned to dissolve the barrier or boundary of separation, which gives us the sense of living inside ourselves and looking out at a world which is other. There's so much stuff out there. There's so many possibilities. How can I know what will be best for me? This kind of problem and uncertainty and anxiety is generated by operating inside the delusion of duality. So, by not meditating, by not trying to interfere with the quality of knowing or the contents of knowing, we come to see that all, as the Buddha said many times, all constructions are impermanent. That is to say, the relation between subject and object cannot be fixed. To try to fix it when it can't be fixed is silly. And this silliness or misunderstanding is the basis of the suffering in samsara. So in Mahamudra, as in Dzogchen, we want to find the calm, open presence, which is not hiding from the flow of experience, nor is it merged in the flow of experience trying to change it. So in the first chapter in the book, which is by the famous scholar yogi Saraha, he says, all phenomena are one's own mind. And then he says, other than one's own mind, there is not even an atom of an entity. So this is quite challenging. We are living in cultures which are materialistic in their orientation. We believe that things exist and that you can accumulate things, money, power, possessions, and that this is often seen as a good thing. I exist and I can get more of these good things which also exist. And what Saraha is doing is very clearly pointing down the middle way. He's not saying that these arisings, these appearances don't exist at all. But what he's saying is they don't exist as something apart from the sphere of your experience. When we fall into duality, when we think I am living inside my body looking at the world, He's saying this is a deluded way of experiencing. This is experiencing based on imagining. Whatever appears is interpreted and modified by your interpretations so that you don't get the freshness of what is occurring. You can start to believe that there is an inherent existence in phenomena. That is to say, appearances are backed by their own personal essence so that they are the appearance of something. So in relation to these four aspects we were looking at before, this is the second one of elaboration. We are elaborating and cooking and formulating our experience moment by moment. But we don't know this, we don't see this, because we are asleep inside the dream of duality. So this middle way is not nothing at all, but not strongly real. What you experience is experience. What is an experience? Something which is undeniably here. It arises and is gone. Everything is like this. Experience is a quality of the mind. It's not outside the mind. This is why in the text they say the mind is like space. You see the sun, the moon, the stars, you think, whoa, they're very far away, they're very big. That's not like me. That's a story you tell yourself. If you stay with the moment, with the experience, you go out on a night when the moon is large and you say, oh, the moon. You're already putting it in a little conceptual box, the moon. So if you relax your mental activity, relax in the out-breath and just open to what is there. There's something very intimate. You're bathing in the moonlight. And the more you do this, there's less to say about it. It is what it is. You, as the experiencer, and the moon as the experienced are co-emergent. So this is what he's indicating, that other than outside or different from your mind, there is not even one atom of an entity. There are no things, only experiences. So that's a very helpful support to take with you in everything you do. There is the diversity of experiences, and yet they all have the same taste of emptiness. You can't catch them. You can't hang on to them because they're going. Because you're outside looking at the moon, and then you're cold and you want to go inside. The experience of the moon dissolves, the experience of shivering arises, followed by the experience of walking back into your house. Not only this, the knower of the vanishing experience also is not a thing. So he says, whoever awakens to the primordial non-existence of mind gains the holy vision of the victors or Buddhas of the three times. There's no mind to grasp. If you go grasping, what you will find is yourself. You're habit formation or your kind of bandwidth of pattern formation, the kind of serial similarity of the patterning that you take to be the continuity of yourself. You can grasp that inside the domain of duality. I can tell you about my childhood, but one thing I can't do is go to my childhood. My childhood is gone. So if I tell you about my childhood, I'm making up stories. I'm forming patterns of sound in the air due to the movement of the muscles in my throat. And these vibrations can be interpreted by you as words. I'm telling you about the non-existent, and you then can believe in the existence of the non-existent. Oh yes, James told me he grew up in Scotland, but the Scotland I grew up in has gone. You have today's Scotland, which has the same name, but not quite the same. When we talk about ourselves as a continuity, we are fabricating, we are imagining, inventing a non-existent as if it existed. The mind is not a thing, colors are not a thing, houses and cars are not things. Oh, let's imagine you have a car and you're going to drive it. You go out to your car, you are experiencing, this is my car. A memory arises, this is my car. No, you're not surprised when your key opens the door of the car and you sit in the driver's seat in the car. You are experiencing this moment of this car. You drive, then the drive is finished, you get out of the car. Then after work, you go back to your car. Now, in the evening, the inside of the car is a bit cold. The light is less, the sky is dark. You drive a little bit more carefully because you don't see so well. Are you in the same car as in the morning? We have this famous saying, you can't step in the same river twice. Man reputed to say it, Heraclitus was pointing to the difference between naming a river so that it's always the same river and the actual flow of the water, which is always changing. So morning and evening, you say, my car. What are you experiencing? This unrepeatable moment. The unique specificity of your body in this situation at this moment, you cannot catch it. It's not a thing. What you can catch is your conceptual structure about this is my car, I know where I bought it, it's good on flat land, but not so good on the hills, and so on. There's always more stories we can tell about anything. Catching a story is not catching the moment. Life is momentary, revelatory, and ungraspable. Reliance on concepts creates the delusion of permanent or enduring entities, things. The stability of the world is a delusion. Reality is a delusion. What we experience is illusion. You can see a mirage, but you can't catch it. It would be wrong to say, I've never experienced a mirage. Your car is a mirage. it is an experience which is ungraspable and yet conceptually apprehended as if it were a true existent. So then he says, if there is an owner, there will be possessions. Yet from the beginning, there has been no self. So what could it possibly possess? That is to say, my car seems to establish an identity as a possessor or owner, and so there are things I can have. But this is the confusion or delusion of relative or conventional truth. If I say I have some confidence that I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about myself. I listen to you when you tell me about yourself, so you should listen to me when I talk about myself. The basis of our interacting as two people is that we mutually validate ourselves. We start with an axiom, a kind of foundational belief that the self exists. I have a self, I am this self. And on the basis of that, we sit and chat about how things used to be and what we might do in the summer and so on. We feel that we understand each other because we are exchanging conventional structurings pointing to the reality of our world and ourselves. This is the blindness of assumption. And this is something that we have touched on when we meet together. We've touched on it many times. The painful truth that the clarity which we achieve through our use of concepts is itself a form of blindness. This seems terrible. We have spent so much time accumulating all this knowledge about things, and actually it seems there are no things and there's no possessor of things. So what was all my effort for? So if Saraha was here, he would say, yeah, stay with that feeling. Death is coming. Do you have more time to waste chasing things which have no substance to them? Awakening and liberation is not achieved through the practice of delusion. Don't tell yourself who you are. Don't tell the world what it is. Relax, open, stay present, and don't interrupt the flow of experience. So this whole book is full of very beautiful, essential statements of the deep truth of Dharma. Because these Doha songs were songs in which yogis express their own direct, precise understanding. They're not distillations of years of academic study, but they are the lived presencing of the presence of someone who inhabits the space of ungraspable experience. So I'll say a little bit about the next song, which is by Virupa. And he says, Mahamudra, the equality of samsara and nirvana, is inherently unborn and completely pure like space. Well, generally, we would say samsara is bad and nirvana is good. Samsara is suffering and nirvana is peace. But this is experience distorted through the prism of self. For the mind itself, open, present, whatever comes, comes, whatever goes, goes. The good and the bad are equal. This is the third point of the four we looked at the beginning. One taste, the taste of empty ungraspability. If it's empty and ungraspable, we don't grasp. If we don't grasp, we relax. If we relax, we're at ease. We're contented. Whatever comes, comes. Whatever goes, goes. The mind itself is not a construct. It's not created out of patterns of experience. Our ego self is created out of patterns of experience. We have a selectivity. We tell stories about ourselves, perhaps to show ourselves in a good light. We might have some secrets that we don't want other people to know, otherwise they would change their opinion about us. The ego is an image, a constructed identity, and so it is fragile. The mind, or Mahamudra, is not like this. He says it is unborn and completely pure like space. You can't touch space. The atmosphere can be contaminated, but space not, according to the tradition. Because the atmosphere is where the wind is moving in space, and the wind has a subtle substance to it, which can be mixed with chemicals and so on. But space is empty. There's nothing there to stick the toxin or the rainbow onto. And he says, how it is, how Mahamudra, how your mind is, cannot be indicated. And so the pathway of conventional terms is cut. Because if we're trying to build a bridge from where we are now to liberation through the placing together of different concepts, as if you were building steps up the side of a hill, this will never take you to the right place. He says, naturally inexpressible. It's inexpressible in and of itself. It is essentially free of association with phenomena. So this is very similar to the example of the mirror that we look at very often. The reflection doesn't contaminate the mirror. Thoughts, feelings, memories, anger, desire, jealousy, pride, none of these touch or contaminate the mind itself. There is nothing to be purified. But you might say, oh, come on, I have a problem with anger. This is true. As an ego self, you have a problem with anger. If you release yourself from your own identification with the patterning of your ego self, then you find your mind doesn't have a problem with anger. Again and again, consciousness in the ego self and the notion of personal identity, these are all obscurations to the ever open brightness of the mind itself. Now, the key point here is that they don't actually obscure the mind. They only obscure the mind if you merge into them. But when your personal sense of self is merged with your memories or your jealousy or whatever, and that pattern seems to be you, where is this palace you have constructed or this prison you have constructed? It's an experience in the mind. When you look in the mirror and you see your face, you might imagine this reflection is getting in the way of the mirror. I want to see the mirror. But the reflection is not an obstacle to seeing the mirror. The reflection is how the mirror shows itself. The reflection is empty in the mirror, which is empty. If you like, the mirror is pure emptiness or infinite emptiness, and the reflection is patterned emptiness. Your thoughts are the emptiness of the mind. If you don't believe me, try to catch a thought. Does it have how would you take hold of it? Does it have substance? It's like a mirage. It's there, but not really there, not there as something. To be with your thoughts and feelings is to be with the radiance of the mind. But you might say, it doesn't look like radiance to me. I'm tired and bored of my own mind. I can't bear it. This is because you are not a very generous host. You can come into my house, but don't talk loudly. Put your shoes there. Don't smoke cigarettes. Eat and be happy with only what I eat. This is a very narrow welcome. We don't say, come as you are. We say, come as you want me, as I want you to be. So this is the welcome of the ego. So when something arises in the mind that the ego has a rejection of, then there is tension. The ego worries about two things: what other people will think about me and what I will think about me. It is concerned with opinions, judgment, evaluation, as if there was something that you could catch and measure and weigh and know, oh, this is how you are. So the ego exists in a permanent battle with impermanence. Whatever the ego constructs, time will wash away. And the ego tries to deny the impact of time on itself. In particular, the uncertainty of time. We don't know when we're going to die. I am me. This is my life. But I don't know when I'm going to die. I'm hardly the owner of myself. When we look again and again at this grasping and shaping and making, we realize this is nothing more than children making sandcastles at the edge of the sea. So then Tilopa, he says, the substantial and the insubstantial are both beyond conceptualization. Your concepts can't catch a dream, they can't catch a stone. There is nothing for mentation to do and no meaning to be sought. Thinking, thinking, thinking makes more thinking. Thinking and talking like I'm doing now, making you crazy with all these words, this is going somewhere, but it's not going anywhere. There's this and this and this vanishing. Nothing is established through thinking or talking. Experience is present and gone. So there's nothing hidden inside this vanishing moment. If you're looking for treasure, the treasure is the vanishing of the moment. So he says, all things are constitutionally false and deceptive. Meaning there's no way to think yourself to truth. And this is a very important idea, which we find also in the Buddhist notion of the two truths. In relative truth, we think about what is occurring. This conceptualization can be simple, or it can be mixed up with the five poisons, the different emotions, memories, and so on. Absolute truth is not concerned with fiction, with imagining, with creating, because everything that we try to develop will vanish. The absolute truth is the stillness of the mind, unruffled by movement. We need to be careful not to make a false duality here and say the absolute truth is the absence of thoughts, memories, and so on. These thoughts, feelings, and so on are not the enemy. They don't contaminate us or cause trouble. They are appearance and emptiness, which is the nature of experience. So, if you rest in the openness of the mind, whatever is occurring will cause no trouble. The ground and the awareness of the ground, or Rigtong, awareness and emptiness, is beyond contamination. This is kada, or the primordial purity. So when you experience through your own sitting practice that all kinds of weird experiences arise, and you see directly, immediately, your own tendency to project some value and meaning into the arising, then you just relax and release that mobilizing energy that wants to do something. Then you see, oh, it's already gone. And it's always going. And therefore, the arising of experience causes no problems, and the vanishing of experience causes no problems. So this is like in the Dzogchen tradition, where they say, rest in the state of the mirror. The reflection is in the mirror. It's very intimate, but it doesn't touch the mirror. Your thoughts, memories, emotional habits, and so on are in the mind, but they do not mark the mind. If you get marked, if you feel impacted, if there is an urge to react, this is a sign, a very helpful sign. You are not in the state of the mirror, you are in the state of the ego. The ego is not real. It is a formation, a patterning, which you can identify with or not. This is why when we do the Guru Yoga, the instruction is always relax and release. Release yourself from identification. The identification or grasping is the energy which drives samsara. It is grasping at self and other, at duality. Then, of course, we do that, we become confused because we're just in this endless haze of reflections. So, Mahamudra is a very sweet and charming way of helping us to release ourselves from the burden of being a self. So, you might find the book useful for supporting your practice. So once again, thank you to Pedro for maintaining the structure within which this Zoom occurs. And thank you to our marvelous translators who make themselves available again and again. And it's so helpful to have these pathways of different languages that allow us to meet together in this realm of conventional truth. So, good luck with your practice, and we have other events coming, and maybe we meet again, or even face to face, who knows. So, bye for now. Pleasure to meet you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, James. Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
James.
Thank you.
Bye. Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Obrigado, obrigado, obrigado.
Gracias.
Bye.
Gracias.
Hi, Wendy.
Bye.
Thank you.
Welcome, João. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Good night.